The Westminster Avenue Public School in the low-income community of Venice, California. Miriam Van Arsdell, for 23 years a dedicated teacher. Now she offers her classroom as a laboratory for an experiment in education. Doreen Nelson, a teacher for 13 years. Frank Gehry, her brother, a professional architect. Together they have developed a way of using architecture and town planning to teach 5th grade. Miriam Van Arsdell's students will join in the pilot project for 1 school year. Their experience will raise fundamental questions about teaching.
We developed Purium as a way of really getting started, something to initiate the project. And we give them a problem to build a city in 3 hours. And we've just put the pressure on like mad in this 3 hours. And at the end, they've resolved some of the problems, but not all of them. And they are totally involved in the city building process. And the name Purium just came out of the blue. We just were trying to think of some reason why you would have to build a city on this piece of cardboard. And we developed a little scenario that the world needed some kind of thing to make trash biodegradable, and Purium was that mineral, and it was discovered in the mountains behind this piece of land, and that the nice farmer who'd been there for 30 years was willing to give up his land for the good of mankind, and that orders were coming in from all over the world.
Urban.
No, it's rural.
Out in the country.
Out in the country is rural.
The world's been worrying for years about how to get rid of their trash, and the scientists came in and they found Purium. Since Purium's been discovered here, what's going to be here pretty soon?
Buildings.
A city, right? Michael, do you want a lot of people in crowd?
No, be too crowded.
Okay, what's that word?
Crowd. Crowd.
Isn't it called over? So you don't want
Overpopulation.
Anything else you don't want?
Enemies.
Enemies.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very good. And I like that word.
Electric cars.
Okay, now, Danny, not just cars, but what? What's it going to be called? The main heading that we're going to talk about.
Monorails.
No, but what are you going to need to move the people around?
What's the whole-
Transportation.
Transportation.
You're going to need some kind of...
Transportation. Girls keeping emotions.
Now, you see, here's a good idea, because you can see here that you need transportation, but you can see over here that you don't want cars and trucks and buses and airplanes. So since you're future people today, you will invent a new transportation system.
Like electric cars.
Whatever you decide on, whatever you want.
You're going to need housing very soon.
We didn't cars.
Transportation? What kind of transportation are you going to have? Did you tell us?
No, a train going all through the city. I mean, a subway.
Oh, that's not bad. See if they'll agree with you.
So, you know, the wrong idea. I want to make
I just got a telephone call that there's a lady who's going to have a baby that's coming in on the airplane.
Right over here.
Oh, great.
Hold it. At a hospital for the lady who's going to have a baby.
Do we have an ambulance?
No, we don't have an ambulance, and the lady lives over there, and the hospital's over there. How are we going to get the lady who's going to have a baby from the house to the hospital? Where's our transportation people?
roads.
There are no roads.
a bridge.
But we have no roads. There's no way to get her there.
Maybe they want to do it in a hurry because you use a different kind of transportation.
Sure.
If you want to get it there in a hurry, what kind of transportation don't even do you?
We need roads.
You want to get the lady to
Oh, no.
Big highway.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I'm sorry. We just have no way to get the people in. Have to put a big highway down. Gotta take the trees off.
Tell me about this. What's this?
We got a little drive-through.
Oh, wait, that's fine. You need it right away.
This up here. Like if we wanted to put a skirt, like a park is over there. Factories, apartments, and hotels. That's pretty good. It won't stand up.
Can you put it this way to take up less space and maybe save some trees?
Okay, we're about finished, you guys. Okay, come on, we're just finishing up. Okay, what about the traffic? We said we didn't want to have cars, trucks, too many roads. How about our Purium City? Do we have that?
No.
Are we going to have traffic problems there?
No. Yeah. Yes.
We are, aren't we?
So did we do a good job here?
No.
No. So we get a big X.
Big X there.
No good.
We lost a lot of trees, so we lost on that.
Mr. Gehry, I'm wondering about the enemies and wars.
I was going to get to that.
Okay.
Now when you get fires and traffic and overpopulation and no trees, do you have wars and enemies?
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Not wars maybe, but at least a lot of people are nervous, aren't they?
Yeah.
They tend to fight with each other then.
Yeah.
So we didn't win that too well.
No.
How would you guys like to keep working on cities for the rest of the year?
Yeah.
And I'm going to come back and talk to you again, see how you're doing. I don't know. I'll come all the time. I felt that the kids really got into it, but that they were held back a little bit. I personally felt somewhat intimidated. I didn't know exactly why at the time, but I felt like I was being watched carefully, and I guess it turned out later to be Mrs. Van Arsdale who was watching me.
I had not been filled in as to what would happen. I'd inquired, wanted to be a part of it, but the feeling was that it was important that the class and I not be, that it occur on the spot, which it did.
We accomplished much more on the transit. The transit day was the best day for me. In terms of learning of kids, I saw kids doing mathematics in areas that I'd never seen before in that group.
A hexagon.
What kind of a
Irregular.
Oh.
That's fantastic. That's all, and what are we doing? We're just computing all the intersections, all the angles, right? Somebody get down there with a stick right on that curve. See it?
Yeah.
Everybody look in and see the stick. You see it? Okay, come on over here. See that zero? That's lined up perfectly on those zeros. It's like the protractor. Right? This is like that. It's just as though this was laid down there. All the way up the rows.
There's 4 and 100. There's 8 and 200, and there's how many in 300?
12.
All right.
And one carry is how much? 5.
That's right. Yeah.
We'll put a circle
What'd you
around
get for
it. 42.2 inches.
The beach
42.2 inches?
Mm-hmm.
The good thing we got a checking
Good thing we checked.
Right here, right. It's right there.
6.
Okay.
Stop.
Terry, you have to mark where you put it. Give me another roll of tape.
They got it. They need that, right? Over a little bit more.
Like that, Carol?
Yeah, that's it. Hey, Mr. Gehry, pull it out. Pull it out.
2 things here. Yeah, 2 things.
Hold it.
Then a door open.
I'll put the stand on the pattern, okay? They take out all that water.
Yeah.
Go all the way around.
So I want you to remember the things you decided about changing the levels, because you can't forget that.
And I think, Mrs. Van Arsdale, they should immediately write down every building they built and its purpose, so we have a little record of it.
What did you forget, though?
Yeah, what did you forget?
Huh?
What did you forget? You forgot something.
No, you forgot something. How do we get around in the city?
Freeway.
The great things about sand is they could cut and change levels, whereas in the classroom they had to deal with only a flat surface and build blocks on top of it. Here they had an ability to cut deep holes and get a vertical change in relationship. I thought that was the most successful day we had with the school, and I think the major reason it was the most successful day was that Mrs. Van Arsdale got into it that day.
She didn't like that day.
She didn't? Oh, that's funny. I got the whole different feeling. I thought she was really participating. I think she probably didn't like that day because I structured part of it.
Right.
I started building a whole.
Right.
I see that there could have been a lot more, I think far better results if more time had been involved in planning, involving the children from the beginning in what was happening, rather than sort of surprising them with things.
I'm Tony, and I'm running for mayor of the new Oakwood community.
Why?
Why? Because I want tall buildings, and I want more parks.
What about the little buildings?
Well, we just gotta make some room for little buildings,
How?
and we need
What
more
do you
parks.
want? Big buildings.
No, I only just want one big building. That's gonna be in the middle of number 18.
Why? How do you go?
Why? Because I want to look all around the city.
Say you get to live there. Yeah.
We felt that the child who we as adults saw as best suited to be the mayor of the final city ought to receive some preferential attention in preparing the speech for that campaign for mayor.
There was pressure from the group involved, from the people working with the school to, through the grant, to have particular youngsters picked for the political offices. I don't know for what reasons, kind of more photogenic or more outgoing, more verbal kinds of youngsters. It just wasn't in keeping with what would be normal procedure in school or out. As for mayor, they picked a youngster who hasn't shown leadership potential according to what has been seen in the past, and yet it was all there, and somehow the children recognized it.
And if I was mayor of the city that we're going to be making, I'd make it better than our Purium city, because I thought that other one was just a disaster area. I thought it was so terrible. I thought it looked like New York and all kinds of things like that. It was just so terrible. And they didn't really care how they made it as long as they got it built.
Once we've defined the overall parcel that they're to work within, the game now is to break them down into individual plots, give each child a plot that's his. But in order to plan it, in order to plan for the greater good of the whole, he's got to resolve his differences with the other students. They have to decide what happens on their mutual property lines, how they're going to put a road through, and so on.
That is the planning
That is the planning process.
When it was heading in the direction of the small parcels of land, very definitely felt that there should be, from the beginning, just more group togetherness in the whole thing, more overall planning. It was if the children had a chance to do the entire planning for a piece of property, and this is simply not part of today's world.
Real important part of it is that is how land is divided in real life. And that is one of the biggest conflicts in our cities, is the private ownership of land. Do you think it's going to be possible to build some projects by getting together and forgetting about the lines? Or do you think everybody's going to have to build on their own?
Build on their own.
Ray said we should keep things separate. Is there something wrong with keeping the things separate? What's wrong?
It wouldn't be a city.
Especially,
Then it'd be about
It's like separate little towns.
Yeah.
I want to just keep something separate, only something really important, like the hospital. That's really important. But really need a lot of noise.
Wait a minute, I got to ask this question again. So, Mike, what you're saying is you don't want 38 separate pieces. You want to look united?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want number 14 because it's a real big spot and you can make a real big football field in it.
One of the things we talked about is that cities get all fouled up because people don't work together. And that was one of the things we were going to try and avoid, that we were going to try and all work together. Does that make sense?
She had a very hard time working together. Can you tell your story, or is it too much?
There are all kinds of transportation.
You want to tell us what's the problem?
No, I'd rather not. I think I've told you enough times what is the problem. All right, yes, I'll be happy to. Lack of planning, lack of foresight, poor judgment as far as working with youngsters are concerned, the teacher's lack of involvement to be able to help with the architect, which is the premise of the entire thing. I think it's extremely unfortunate to a group of children who are very capable that they have not been given the fair chance for this year that they were promised at the beginning. We've had effective people in here. There are times when you have had excellent rapport. I don't know what's happened, but
As far as I'm concerned, you absolutely kill any kind of creativity. I come in with...
Are you speaking to me personally,
Yes,
Mr.
I'm
Gehry?
speaking to you personally.
I see. Well, I have...
And I think that you create a tension in the kids that makes it impossible to get to them. The mayor of the town came to me the other day and said that the Circle building was my idea.
Right.
And therefore...
That's right.
And
And
who
the
told
youngster
them
said
that?
They told me, and the flower building also. They had built flower buildings, but they
to
said
you what I was trying to do.
imposing ideas upon children
I
rather
wasn't
than their own
imposing ideas.
creativity.
I'm an architect, and I have solutions to the thing. And
You
I'm
have
trying
better
to...
ideas, I believe you said.
No,
True,
I'm
I would hope you could
explaining to
help children to do this. It's happened over and over, trying to rig my election. Within the kids, they came up with beautiful choices. Why do these kinds of things? Why impose ideas? The eraser suggestion Ananda made, I want to make a eraser monument to pollution, which Doreen took and threw in the wastebasket. And Ananda would not participate. Right. She told me about it. And you wonder why she's still getting in there. She's a very bright kid and someone who will care. And she said, that's why I wouldn't make a monument. I hope you're not mad at me.
You know, you're lying.
I'm sorry. This is
I
so
have
bad.
never taken any child's work and thrown it in the wastebasket, so just stop that. Don't stop
Either
that.
in this same school?
Just stop it.
Sorry.
Cool it. Just stop it, because it's
I want
crock
it
of
cool. I
baloney.
want it over.
Fine, it's over. We'll not poach on your territory any longer.
It's incredible.
I can't come in here and work, you know, under these circumstances.
It's just impossible to have somebody sitting there who's a force against you all the time. We've tried to explain to her what we're doing. The improvisational qualities of that we're trying to achieve are killed when somebody goes and really sits down and programs everything you've been trying to say out of existence. Now, you know, you feed them an idea, you give them something to start with, and then from there they build, and that's constantly. It's like the little girl building the building in the first day. Debbie sat in the corner, wouldn't do a damn thing until I started working with her and building something. And then once she saw she could do it, she finished that building and then did another one. Well, she might not have done anything.
Kids make pretty things. They can make cute things, and you can always end up with something that looks very good. What she fails to understand is what was occurring today is really the planning process, and that's the crux of the whole thing. Whether they end up with a model or not doesn't count.
Things have gotten so complicated that nobody really knows what the right way or the wrong way is anymore. And all we're talking about is trying things and taking chances, and it's in that spirit that we were supposed to be cooperating, and I didn't feel any cooperation. I was willing to bend a long way to meet her requirements. I didn't always agree with them. If I could have discussed the problem with her rationally, but she was always suspicious of my intent, what I was trying to do.
They decided that somehow Mrs. Van Arsdale there she wanted to get other people in instead.
Other people?
Yeah, I think that's...
We need them. There's other architects. Well, I mean, you know, there's other architects. It's not just
Would you rather
him.
have other ones?
No, we don't even know what other ones are.
Do you like Mr. Gehry?
Because we have them.
What about you, Cindy? Do you want to have a new guy?
No.
No? Why not?
Because Mr. Gehry is a good one.
Do you remember about this eraser idea that you had?
Mrs. Nelson, after I heard her say that she wouldn't bother with it, instead she just went right ahead and did it.
What did she do?
Well, she just told me she doesn't like my idea and everything, so I just took the dough and threw it back in the bucket.
You took the dough, or did she? You did.
I did.
Yeah. I see, but does she do that often to you?
No.
No. Does it really bother you when she does do it?
Yeah.
Well, it gets on me. It gets me right there.
Does it?
Yeah.
Well, how do you feel when she likes an idea?
Huh? He says, that's great. And, you know, she starts laughing. She goes like this, that's great. Oh. She says, you're a real smart boy now. You got a good idea in there.
I do plan, of course, to continue with my children, bringing in, as I have in the past, resource people in architecture and other disciplines who can work, relate to youngsters, help them, not give them ideas, however, help them, support them with ideas in positive ways.
And it bothers me, you keep saying they said. What do you say? How do you feel? You have as much right as anybody else to say what you say and what you feel about things. And I might change this. Oh, it's nice. I mean, real dough, so you can eat it.
No.
Use real dough and bake it.
Then eat it. You know, like make this one.
At the end of the project, you can eat all your product.
Yeah, make sure we put it over there.
Am I happy? Yeah, that's some more.
Stop. Yeah. Sal doesn't seem to be taking the kids seriously. He's playing with them like they are kids. He's not seriously involving himself with what are the problems of planning a city or planning the area they're involved with.
I don't think anyone's taking themselves seriously. The adults are treating the children like children, and they're behaving like children.
And the kids are behaving like children. And I've seen it the other way. When they take the roles of council and mayor, they grow up. They become adults.
You're all working for the good of people, which is great. That we understand. But now you have to have something else to do a plan. You have to work towards a structure, everybody, and put his input in it. Because I find you're all fighting. You're becoming politicians already. You know, you want the school in your hunk of land and so forth.
It became apparent at that time of the semester that we were going to have to replan what we had originally thought we would do to do it well. You know, are there more of these? You can think about your skill, but you've got room to make it even larger if you want. What do you think?
Deborah? What are you doing?
Making a church.
Church? What, are you painting a gold?
Yeah.
How did you decide to paint a gold?
Because other people think the churches just have to be white. This is going to be the grassy area over there by the beach.
You gonna cover it with bees?
Yeah. Peas. Black eyes. It is hard to do. No, I guess you go like this, go up the stairs, up to the stairs.
You can go in
over
where the
this
housing is. Where the housing down here where the shopping is, you can get, there's some stairs.
You could either go up here and go down through the elevator, or you could walk down and get right there in the shopping and take the elevator up.
I think you go this way, open the door, and go in.
That's the elevator because that's too big to be a door. That's an inch.
I like this one the best.
Why is that?
Because you can go into the restaurant and get a cup of coffee up the stairs right here, and here's the walkway that you can go in and go inside, and you see the water when you go inside.
Because it's glass kind of form, and you look down. It can also be like health food, you know. It's got all kinds of food, whatever kind of food you want, you know. These are pavilions for like rock and for like concerts and plays and stuff like pottery and lessons on knowing how to do all that, you know, like music lessons and like you can go there and see a play or a puppet show or something like that. This one's the medical center and this is a laboratory.
Are they monuments to anything special? What are they monuments to?
Peace. They're in the shape of peace stuff.
What about you, Tony? What do you like
And
best?
this box.
Well, I like best about them houses right there.
All they did was just take those blocks and paint them and put those little round things on them and then just look what I made, you know. But like a kindergartner could take a block and paint it, you know. And they turned out so icky. It's not really a city.
What is it?
Just recreation park.
It's just, what is it? It's mostly recreation, but they wanted to tie in some housing and other things.
Who's they?
We did.
They work at supermarkets and the shopping center.
Maybe they said it's the rich people's place and they don't have
jobs here.
And And they work in the medical centers and the laboratories.
In the houses too, the service.
And just think of all the people who need for a maintenance crew to take care of all this.
Debbie's thing was great when she did her little wiggle and said that this is a place for rich people. And I think that's the point. There's nothing to relate to the problems that she's confronted with in the city. She can't relate to this project. She says it's just a project for rich people. I'm sure that was the gist, or I got the feeling that was the gist of what she was saying. And it looks like that. The more I look at it, the angrier I get.
You know, what would happen is someone would just build a building and say, you know, I got a building, you know, and people would say, okay, and go it on.
Let's see. Charles, who's the planning commissioner? Charles?
Charles.
Did anyone ever ask for permission?
I did.
No.
I did.
Did you give it when you asked?
Yeah.
Me too, Charles.
But he never thought of what would happen. Like if the building was right in the river, I guess he'd say, yeah.
Well, it was kind of a big space, and it's kind of hard to handle such a wide surface. I mean, like such a big place. So we decided just to take a piece out of somewhere in Venice and then, like, fix it up, kind of. No. Because, like, such a big area, you know, people are going to be. There's going to be a lot of arguments, you know? Because, like, each person say, here's my little piece, right? I'll say, well, I want this to be maybe recreation or monument. And someone right here says, no, I want to put a factory here. You can't do that, you know, because this is my plot of land, you know? And that would conflict with my factory. And that would conflict with my factory.
Don't you think, Jenny, just what she just said? She just said the whole project right there in that last footage.
Yeah, they were obviously just taken all the conflict out of the project because it was too hard to deal with.
They reduced it in size because the size was too
They didn't
hard.
want to spend the time on it. It looks like a
couple of hours a week.
Something they went to an art period rather than something they were involved with totally and got into the government and the inner workings of it and how it all fit together and discussed the conflicts of the transportation versus the park versus the industry. You know, Jenny said it.
I think in considering doing this kind of program again, I, of course, would bring in the extra people, but I'd like them on a continuing kind of basis and not using such a tremendous amount of school time. I think I think it can just work in and be integrated into a program as any social studies unit would be.
The point she missed is that the conflict, when they start arguing with each other, that's the real involvement in the city planning process that they were robbed of. And that was the kind of group activity that we were looking for, which scared Mrs. Van Arsdale, which she thought was not democratic, was arbitrary, was serendipity. She used all of those words, and she felt that wasn't, that experience was irrelevant. Whereas that's really the relevant experience, and taking a piece out of it and embellishing it and making a beautiful object wasn't at all what we were trying to do.
I learned that everything what people want can have it. I learned a lot of stuff. I learned how to measure and stuff.
I learned how to plan a city like this, like an architect.